Hey, Dr. Dish fam, I am super excited to introduce one of our favorite partners and skills trainer, Shane Hennen from Hennen Workouts. Shane, thanks so much for being here.
Appreciate it.
You know, you actually drove in, right? That's a crazy thing. It's our first snowfall here in Minnesota.
Drove right through that snowstorm.
How was the trip? How does it feel to be back in your home state?
It feels good, man. We don't have any snow in Iowa, so to see some snow actually made me pretty happy, just being from Minnesota and being used to it. So
that's right.
That's great. It's good to be here, man.
Cool, awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you, and we've got a number of questions just about your journey, and it's obviously been a pretty long one, right? You've been around the game of basketball most of your whole life, and for our Dr. Dish fam, they probably know you at Hennen Workouts, right, on social media, so we'll be sure to drop all those links in the description, tag you, all that good stuff. But tell the Dr. Dish fam a little bit more about your journey, kind of how your love of the game developed, your high school career, your college career, and how you kind of transitioned into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town, Ghent, Minnesota, and went to school in Minneota, which is also very small, very near to Aaron. So Southwest Minnesota, small town, not a lot of resources, but I had my dad, and my dad was awesome. He was a farmer, had very little time because, being a farmer is a grind. So we had a little hoop in our driveway, and the way I got introduced to basketball was just my dad playing with me in the yard and showing me who Kevin Garnett was. And then I was at the elbow doing fadeaways like Kevin Garnett, and I was trying to reimagine myself being these people. So I think the most important thing for me now as a trainer is to take some of the stuff that my dad did with me as far as just teaching me to appreciate the game and love the game. He would bring me to the high school games, and I look at these players and be like, these are the best players in the world, So I really had a very healthy introduction to the game, which I think made me fall in love with it. So had a great high school career, scored a ton of points, went to a small NAIA school, and got my butt kicked right away, and started to learn how, the difference between college and high school and how to fit a role, and, you're not going to be the best player. And it was a grind, man. It taught me, to be honest with you, the basketball experience was great, but the overall experience of just growing up and becoming a man and having discipline and having hard, disciplined people around you and holding you accountable was very, very valuable to me. So it's been a good mixture of my basketball journey as far as my playing experience, good mixture of, me falling in love with the game, growing, being successful, being challenged, failing and succeeding, and then just kind of learning the ins and outs of how this works. So that's how I started. When I got done playing college, I played 4 years there. We had great teams, went to some tournaments, and then I got into training. And that's kind of where I started. So I had a normal job when I got out of college and did some basketball stuff on the side, and it just kind of blossomed into a career. So that's where I'm at.
Well, that's great. And that's kind of what I was going to ask, because we were just talking before this interview of how you kind of transitioned from what you would kind of call more of a regular job, right? Of you got your degree, you're doing some things, but talk to us a little bit about how you made that transition, how you got into training, and what it was like kind of turning your passion for the game into an actual real business.
Yeah, you know what? Coming from a small area, and I think anybody that comes from smaller towns can attest to this, it's, when you grow up, the idea is you get a job, right? Something that's a career that has benefits, all these things. And when I first got out of college, I joined a marketing agency, and I remember being there, and it was exciting because it was new. But I remember just the long days, and I felt like I really wasn't doing much, and I was like, okay, I'm going to coach these kids afterwards, and I'm super excited about it. And I just I had no idea what I was doing, And in college, they try to prepare you, but until you start working, you really don't know. So I'm getting this career experience, and I'm realizing okay, something about me and the way I'm made doesn't fit into this perfect work from this hour to this hour, get this much done. I was if I'm passionate about something, I'll work and I'll grind and I'll grind and I'll make something of it. So this marketing agency, basically they closed down, they got bought out, and they said, okay, you can apply for a job at this other place that bought us out. And they had some good positions, but I just really love basketball so much, and I've grown to love teaching kids, and I got to know these families. And I basically reached out to the gym I was working for and said, hey, if there's any opportunities for me to make a little bit more income, I'd love to kind of get into this world a little bit more. And God bless them, they gave me some opportunities to make some more money. I said, look, I'll clean the gym, I'll clean the bathrooms, I'll literally do whatever. I just want to be in this industry. So that's kind of how I started. I took a step away from that. My parents were like, oh my goodness, like what, this is all right now for now, but you should be looking at maybe doing something else. Wow. Which is funny to me because I still get those questions and those looks sometimes when I tell people like, I work in basketball, this is what I do. I film stuff, I work with kids, I do all these things. So yeah, that's kind of how I started. I had a normal job and realized maybe that structure wasn't for me, and kind of just put myself in the basketball industry and just went all in.
Really cool just seeing how far you've come.
Yeah.
But talk about that piece of content. So we'll certainly share it, we'll link to it, but just explain kind of the synopsis of, we were talking about this too, of people think basketball facilities and gyms are very permanent, right? But for you, it was a little different.
Very different.
Explain the process of maybe how you identified your space, really quick, what the steps were of going from idea to actually having kids in your gym training.
Well, I think it goes back to being engulfed in the industry. Obviously, you'll see AAU programs, you'll see tournaments, you see other private trainers and kind of how they operate, how they make money. And, as a beginning trainer, I think the biggest issue is gym space. And it's like, where am I going to do my business at? Because either you're renting space for a high dollar amount or you have access to a gym that only gives you a couple hours, couple days. And it's like a big headache for a lot of people. And you have to start that way, but eventually you want your own space just for, just to be able to relax and say, I don't have to go through anybody to get this space. I can just go in whenever I want. So my idea was like, okay, I know a lot of kids have resources where they play AAU, they play high school, they have all these other places they can go, but there's not a place that's not affiliated with anything. So I'm not your high school coach, I'm not your AAU coach, I'm not anybody that's recruiting you. I'm literally just a resource for you to come in, get better, then you can leave. Yeah. And when I realized that, I understood like it doesn't matter what the space technically looks like or how much space there is. If you can get them results, they'll keep coming back. And if you supply an environment where they feel like mistakes are okay and nobody's here to judge me, nobody's here to cut my playing time, nobody's here to do any of that. I can just go to this place, I can go work out with Shane in this little shed, right? And I can grow. So a big part of it was just me creating an environment where players felt like it was okay for them to make mistakes and to grow. And like we were talking about, a space, when people think about that, they're like, I got to go get a plot of land, I got to build 3 courts, full courts, college, whatever. And it's just not, business-wise, it's not the smartest thing, because then you're stuck like running tournaments, you're stuck hosting events that you really didn't want to do anyway. So basically what I did is I found a warehouse space that literally was a diesel mechanic shop before that. So there's like, when I went toured the space, there was like truck and oil and all this stuff everywhere.
It's so good.
It was hilarious. And I'm like, yeah, I think I can make this a gym space. And the guy was looking at me like, what are you doing? And we measured all like the square footage and what we had. And I had a buddy that I leaned on that was an engineer and just said, hey, can you draw up some lines that would fit in this space and tell me what it would look like? Yeah. And it worked, and for me as a business owner that was just starting, it was so low expense because of the space, and basically we turned in a small tight space into a training environment where all of these kids and high level players started showing up, and it was great. And there's spaces that are surrounding that spot that were much better, much bigger, had better resources, but the kids weren't going there. So it was awesome. I'm excited to do another one in Des Moines, Iowa. So yeah, we're excited.
No, that's amazing, and yeah, I think that's a great testament too, that you don't have to, fitting for your scenario, you don't have to bet the farm, right? You can just start with a small plot of land.
Yep.
If you can make a diesel warehouse work, if you're watching this video, don't think that you can't find the space for you.
Exactly.
Shane's living proof of that.
Yep.
So for you, what was the biggest challenge? Was it the space? I know you said for a lot of trainers, creators, the space is a factor. It didn't sound like that was too big of a hurdle for you.
Right.
But what were just some general, when you think of things that were in the way when you were building your business to get to where you are now, what were some of the challenges you had to overcome?
I think the biggest thing for me was finding a mentor. Finding somebody that was in my industry that was doing this at a high level. And I didn't know that I needed a mentor till I met one. And when I met him, man, it like changed the game for me. Like it was somebody that I could talk to that had experience in everything. And he was a couple years ahead of me. So seeing like where he failed, and he would talk to me about how that happened, and then his success stories was like super beneficial. So if I'm a beginning guy, beginning trainer, the biggest thing I would say is find a mentor that is in the industry. Doesn't have to be somebody famous, but somebody that you respect, and just start talking to them and pick their brain as much as possible. I think one of the biggest challenges for trainers or any skill development coach, one is the space, but two is How do I get clients? How do I keep them? How do I get them results? So a lot of that was I got clients, and the way to keep them around is obviously to create a safe environment for them to train, but also to get them results, to make sure that they are, performing well in games, because that's really what matters. So that was the biggest hurdle, was like, one, you have to get those clients, but two, you got to make sure that they want to keep coming back and they're seeing benefits in training with you.
So as it relates to, being a good teammate, or when you look at things other than scoring, filling up the stat sheet, like what advice do you give players about just how to be a better teammate, how to contribute, even if they're not, the next D1 player or the next
what? In high school, it was so hard because you're good, right? If you're one of those really good players in high school, you don't know how to be a good teammate until you are humbled a little bit. And when I got to college and I was like, holy cow, I got to add some weight. I got to get faster. My skills that I thought were good, there's 4 other people that are better than me in my position. So, even when you do improve those things, like one thing I wanted to do when I was a freshman after I had that experience was like, most of the kids would go home, and I desperately wanted to go home because I loved being back home. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay in this city. I'm not going to miss a lifting thing. I'm not going to miss anything. When I'm done with my 4 years, I'm going to make sure I don't have any regrets. Like, oh, I should have stayed that summer, and then I might have had this. I made sure that I showed up to everything. And even when you do that, right? Even when you show up to everything, you work hard, it doesn't guarantee you really anything. That's almost like the bare minimum of what is required from you. Totally. Showing up, working hard, that's what everybody can do. So I would be doing those things, right? And I'm like, well, I stayed here all summer. I did all these things, like, okay, it's time to play. And it just didn't happen right away. It took even longer. And in that moment, I realized, like, look, Shane, in order for you to be happy, you can't always be relying on being on the floor scoring 1,000,000 points. It's just like, that's not how this level is going to play out for you. Yeah. So I realized, like, okay, I have best friends that are playing. I want to support them. I want to show coach that, even though I'm not playing, I'm still proud to be on this team. Because we're good. So I'd be standing up and clapping. I'd be the guy at practice that would purposely pick the best player and guard them. So I'd be doing all these things just to kind of, one, prove to the coach that I am trying, but also, like, even though I'm not getting opportunities that I feel like I want, there's other things that I can do to produce value. And it wasn't until then that I really realized, like, how to be a supportive teammate and then what team actually means. Because when you're the best player, you feel like, okay, this is all on my shoulders. I'm doing all these things, like give me a water, like all these things, right? Yeah. And until you're the guy that's getting the best player the water, right? Sure. And supporting them and telling them, like, hey, this is what I'm seeing, or just clapping, it's hard to know. So it's a lesson I learned when I got to college, when I was humbled, when I was surrounded by players that were better than me. It was like, now's the time to learn what it means to be on a team and how to be a good teammate.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. And yeah, I mean, all that stuff, right? Like, not everybody can be the one getting served. There has to be people doing the serving. And
well, you know what? To be honest, too, when I go back to school, nobody knows. Like, they all know me because I was a part of the program. Sure. So they're all like, what's up, Shane? Like, how you doing? Where you? Like, they all, you go back to those situations, and since there was a team environment, you were a good teammate, you left a good imprint on these people. You leave with some respect from these people. So when you go back, you're just another one of the guys. Like, you could have scored 2,000 points or 5 points. Right. Nobody really cares, right? Because at that point, it's past that. It's like a brotherhood. It's a respect thing. Like, you did this with us. You lasted 4 years. You were there for us. We were there for you. Yeah. So it's very special to me.
What would you say when you start thinking about things like setting goals, right? Like, obviously what you're doing, you're working with a lot of players, and those players, they might be working with you frequently. They might be working with you just occasionally. So it probably becomes pretty important, like having very specific goals of what they're trying to achieve and how they're going to get there. Yeah. What role does goal setting play in your business? Yeah. And how can young players or players of any age take what you've learned about goal setting and apply it to their games?
Yeah, I think that's one of the very first conversations I have with parents is when their kids come in. It's like, okay, what are some things we're struggling with? And like I said, of course we want to cover everything and work on all these encompassing skills that kind of bleed all together. But having those 1 or 2 or 3 goals that we can set is very, very important because it gives you this clear path of like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And even before that, what's more important is after you understand the issue, there has to be a belief that I can overcome this. If you do not have the belief, it's just not going to happen. Like, you can just go in the gym and work on all this stuff, but at the end of the day, if you're not confident in what you're trying to do, the results are not going to come. So I think even more important than some of those goals is, one, understanding like, okay, this is the issue that I have at hand, this is what I need to do, but I have to believe that if I work on this or if I go this direction, I can actually accomplish it. So, from my experience, one of the biggest things, like I said, was my dad giving me that mentality of like, why not you? You can do this if you want. Yeah. And that's what I would tell people. If you're going to set goals, there also has to be time spent on just believing in what you can accomplish.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, not just all the physical skills training. You got to work on your mind too.
100%.
So I wanted to ask you this question specifically because I see you as someone who you're crazy about the content.
Yeah.
And we talked about just that balance, even of a business owner, right? Of you want to create content, but you also have a client list and players and parents who are counting on you. So I think that players watching this are in that same boat, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they want to utilize social media or they love social media. Can you just talk about what you see from your lens of you're training all these players, of maybe how you see social media fitting into the game and maybe what some dangers are of things that kids might want to be, cautious of or just be aware of when they're posting on TikTok, Instagram, all that?
I think, for me, where I make my most income currently, and I think a lot of trainers will say this, is the on-court training. So in order for me to, one, have space, have more time in my schedule, I have to do those things to set myself up. Social media is a major, major resource, and it's a very important tool. And it's a lot of reasoning of how I got into places, why I'm here, why I'm, have met a lot of people, is because they've seen my stuff. Yeah. So it's tough because you don't always see a direct impact of your social stuff. You see that kind of later, and it plays out over time. Right. I think balancing as a trainer or as a player, if I needed to train kids in person or if I was a player that had to work out and spend time developing, it is a tough balance. And there's going to be days where you have to say, this has to go down a little bit and this has to go up. Right. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. There's not like a perfect recipe for anybody. So I think where the art is and where the skill level is the sliding of the scale. How much do I slide the scale towards business, towards working out? And then how much do I slide back this way? Where do I put that? I think your evaluation of your time, your day, how much resources you have is important. So as a kid, if I was looking to produce a lot of content, I think that's great. I think growing your brand right now is it's something that I wish I would have done earlier because it does take time. I would do it in a fashion where there's respect tied to it and you're not doing or putting anything out that's disrespectful to anybody, but more talking about you, your journey, what you're trying to accomplish, maybe some stuff that I think that's all valuable and I think it can help a lot of people. So growing your brand is important, but doing it the right way I think is more important.
Yeah, no, that's really good, and I think a message that players can't hear enough, right? Especially not from their coach or their parents, but from someone like you who's just in the business of skill development. So just tell us a little bit about how has the Dr. Dish kind of changed your training practice, and how has it, changed the way that you and your players work out together?
It has been great. To be honest with you, it's like one of those things that you look at it and you're like, okay, that is a resource that I could use that would be helpful. But really what it is, it can change a lot of things. It can change literally change a player's life in their game. It can also change the way you run your business. From a business standpoint, it's very helpful because I can put a player on that with a design workout that I know exactly what they need, and they can come in whenever they want and just hammer it out. And it's beautiful. And that's something that I think is very important is one, giving players a resource to work out, right, and to teach them some things, but also it's important for that player to know how to work themselves out. Right? And to put their own workouts in the dish and to be able to get their own shots up. I think that's huge. So I've just seen so many benefits from the machine, and I'm super happy that I have it in our facility. I'm happy for this continued relationship with you guys. And I think for any player, man, one of the biggest things is reps, and I have yet to find a better way to get high quality reps. So it serves its purpose in so many different ways, I think more than what people think.
Okay, so we're going to kind of go a different direction. I'm going to hit you with a speed round. All right. So these are quick, off-the-cuff questions. Oh, no. I'm just going to hit you with a bunch of basketball questions. Yeah. And this is the last one. So let her rip here, and we'll wrap this up.
I got to answer quickly?
You got to answer quickly. All right. The first question. What's the biggest mistake that players who are training make? Hoopers.
Not consistent.
That was easy. All right, most undertaught skill in the game of basketball?
Footwork.
LeBron or Jordan?
Ooh, my wife's gonna literally hate me. LeBron.
LeBron. Who's going to be in the Final Four this year, NCAA?
Ooh, probably KU. I can see Duke there. I can see Kentucky there. Villanova? Those are safe picks, right?
Always safe. Game of one-on-one basketball, you and Bjorn Broman, who wins?
Oh my goodness. Bjorn, I have the height advantage. He can shoot. I'm just going to take him to the post, so I'm going to take me.
All right, we might have to make that one happen. All right,
All respect, Bjorn.
This is a little bit of a different lightning round. I'm going to name a bunch of NBA guys. You tell me overrated, underrated.
Oh, I love this.
All right, I saw this guy in your Instagram story the other night. I'm excited about this one, Karl Anthony Towns.
Oh my God, we're in Minnesota. Listen, Kat, I love you. A little bit overrated right now.
All right, a guy who broke the hearts of many Timberwolves fans, Jimmy Butler.
Underrated, for sure.
A guy who
hurts.
has had a tough NBA career thus far, Julius Randle.
I think properly rated, maybe a little bit overrated, but properly rated is what I would say.
Fair enough. Desmond Bane.
Underrated, for sure.
Guy's good.
That guy is really good.
Last one, Gordon Hayward.
Properly rated now, underrated in his prime.
Awesome. Well, I will stop there, Shane, but honestly, it's a pleasure not only to work with you, but just to watch how you're changing the game. And I know that for you, you really have a passion for taking this thing to the next level.
Yeah.
So if you guys don't already, follow Shane at Hennen Workouts on all social medias. Shane, again, we're super proud to call you a partner, and
thank you.
Can't wait to keep growing the game with you.
I'm excited. Appreciate it.